Here we are again. This is Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. I definitely did not expect this machine to come on as I was setting it this morning. But what I want to talk about today is, are you ready for business? Spiritual business. Do you know that Saul, as he was crossing the country, he was like you and I in a big sense of the word. He was just a lost man, but he was a Pharisee of Pharisees. He was righteous in his own eyes, and he was righteous according to the law. And he was doing as he felt according to the law. And it was kind of like back in the olden days when everybody did what was right in his own mind. And Paul saw everything that he was doing as right in his own mind. And of course, after he stoned Stephen, one of the first martyrs in the first church, God spoke to him, and he came to his senses a little bit. Speaking about Stephen as a martyr, there were many martyrs in the first church. And Stephen was one of the first of those martyrs. And I have a list here of the martyrs that were in the first church. Stephen was the first one, and of course Paul, rightfully so now, according to the law, he was breaking the law and he would be stoned to death, and so he was stoned to death. And but then Paul came to the realization that the law had been fulfilled, not completely done away with. No, the law, God forbid, the law is not the law. You have to have law. If you don't have law, you have anarchy. So there has to be some type of law. So the law of God is still the law of God. The Ten Commandments are a picture. They're not something that anybody can keep. They are a picture of what the righteousness of God is like. And man himself cannot keep the righteousness of God. Only through the power of Jesus Christ can any of the Ten Commandments be kept. You couldn't keep one of them on your own if you wanted to. And but remember, Stephen got stoned there in Jerusalem, and Paul was the one that stoned him. And this was about after divinity, after Jesus went to the cross. This was about 36 years after Jesus went to the cross. And then James was beheaded. He was one of the first two. And we're talking about men now that were ready for the commission. They went out and they were ready for the commission. How do you say they were ready, Brother Peter? If you're ready to die, then you're ready to live. If you're ready to die, then you're ready to live. You can't be ready to live until you're ready to die, especially for Jesus Christ. And then we know that Peter was crucified at Rome, and we know that Peter had requested, from what all history tells us, to be crucified upside down, because he didn't feel like he was worthy to be crucified in the same direction that Jesus was. And then we know that Paul was beheaded at Rome, and that was the end of Paul on the scene. And that was in about 64 AD, 64 years after Christ. And then Andrew was crucified in Greece. And Andrew now was one of the spokesmen that directly was with Jesus. Thaddeus, Bartholomew was crucified too. He went to a crucifixion. And that was in Armenia. Now, what we're seeing here from these boys that got martyred early in life, they got martyred at different places. So they were willing to get out. I'm finding, as I get older, that the more spiritual part of life, or the things that God would have you do, is going to be with those one-on-one circumstances that you get in and meet people. Just like yesterday, I had a wonderful time at the gas pump with a man who really needed some spiritual advice, spiritual help, took it gracefully and carried it away with him. And I'm praying, God, I probably never ever lay eyes on that man again. And I pray that God made an impression on him through the time that we spent together for, say, 3.5, 4, 5 minutes maybe at the gas pump. And he went away like a new man. And I'm praying God will work with him. Now, I'm finding that those outside of the church, those at the gas pumps, those in the filling station, those in the restaurant, those on the sidewalk, those people you meet and you do business with are the people God is sending you after. And they're the ones that's going to listen. And these boys right here, all these boys right here were out on commission, out on duty, ready for the work of the cross, and they were out doing it. Now, Thaddeus was crucified in Persia, and Simon the Zealot, they say he was crucified in Persia also. So we see that these boys that were crucified, one at Jerusalem, a couple at Rome, one at Greece, one in Armenia, and 2 in Persia. So where were they? They were away from their regular home, their place of dwelling, let's say. They were out on mission duties. They were missionaries, active missionaries, walking out there doing the work. Did they get rave review and well acceptance from everybody? Well, it stands to reason you can personally see that they didn't. They got crucified for what they were preaching and what they were doing. And so those that loved them, and those that hated them, hated them. And by the way, we're living in that same type of world again today. Now, the earliest witnesses that were crossing the country and to different people were John, Matthew, and Peter were sent to the land of Judah. Now, Israel is in Israel, and Judah in Judea, and Peter and them went to Judea, and John, Matthew, and Peter were apostles in Judea. Now, Philip, he went to Samaria. I love Samaria. Samaria were half-breed Jews. They were of the sect of Jews that originally had got in trouble because they allowed others to come in and mix with them, and they were half-breeds. Now, half-breeds weren't well accepted in those days. And so, but Jesus made a point, definitely. He said, I must go to Samaria for this one Samaritan woman that was waiting for him at the well. And she was waiting for Jesus. She knew all about him. What was amazing to me when you read the story is here's a lady that knew more about Jesus than the Jews did. And she was a Samaritan woman. And by the way, she brought back the whole city, or the statement is the whole city. Can you just see her going out and all the men of that city? The women wouldn't have anything to do with them. But she brought the men of that city back to the well. And Jesus won a great group of that city, and the Samaritans became followers of Jesus. And then Philip went to Samaria. Samaria is another group of people there. And then we had Rome. Peter went to Rome, and Paul went to Rome, and Paul went to Greece. And Andrew and Philip, those three, Peter, Paul, Andrew, and Philip, 4, went to Greece at different times and won many there. Armenia was Bartholomew and Thaddeus. They went to a place called Armenia. Well, you and I are familiar today with these names because they're still on the map. They still have a residue from the first church there. By the way, I watched a program not long ago on the geological area there and how that some of the ancient things are the old churches that these fellows started, and the buildings are still there and still. Now, Simon the Zealot went to Persia, and of course he was crucified there in Persia, and even though he won many, many converts, he also got crucified there. Now, Paul, we've got listed as going to Syria, and he did. But he also made many other journeys to many other places. Now, Thomas started work in India, and that work that Thomas started in India, there is still a seed of that work in India, still going on. And also, at Thomas, he went into Egypt and Liberia, and he also went into Arabia, which is North Africa. He went in the tip of North Africa. And by the way, none of these fellows' work went in vain. It is still showing up today. It is still written in the annals and the history of those countries that those fellows came through there. The question this morning was, that we were starting with in Tidbits for the Word, was, are you ready for business? I watched a program the other day, and this great guy on television who is an entrepreneur of money making, of big business, he said, a suit, a tie, a shirt, decent, and then you're ready for business. Appearance first. You appear to be what you're supposed to be. Now, if you're going to be a worker for the Lord, you need to appear. If you are going to be an ambassador, you need to look like an ambassador. We need to, if we're going to do God's work, we need to be proper ambassadors. We need to be studied up and ready to be ambassadors for Christ. We need to look like them. I can go like I'm looking right now here to any filling station anywhere in the United States, walk up to a person, take a tract out of my pocket and say, sir, if you died right now, do you know whether you'd go to heaven or not? And hand them a tract, and they will accept it. They will be polite, even if they're the meanest person on the world, and you'll have no problem. But if I'm dressed like the regular world, and I'm not going out as a bona fide man of God, and go up there looking ragged, they shun away from you, thinking you're coming over there to knock them in the head. So it's important that we dress properly and act properly. All right, I've got to go now. This is Brother Peter with Tidbits from the Word, and we'll see you next time